Alright, we'll start with example 4. Now in example 4, we can see that the x squared is not first, so we need to rewrite this in standard form. So we're going to write the x squared first, and then the x, so the sign in front of the x stays with it, and then the number, so we have a minus 6 at the end. And that tells us that a is 1, b is 1, and negative 1, sorry, b is negative 1, and c is negative 6. So is there greatest common factor between 1, negative 1, and negative 6? No. So we'll take 1 times negative 6, and we get negative 6. So that's what we're multiplying to get. And we're adding to get a negative 1. So we look at our negative 6. That could be 1 times 6, or 2 times 3. It's a negative 6, so one of those numbers has to be negative, and if I'm adding to get a negative number, then I want the bigger number to be negative. So this right here gives me an adds to get a negative 1, so I'd have 2 and a negative 3 as my numbers. So I write a on top, 1 over 2, and then 1 over negative 3. I write straight down, that's an x squared, so this is really 1x and 1x. We don't write the 1, so I'll write x plus 2 and x minus 3. Now this is already in standard form. We can see that a is 12. It's in front of the x squared. B is a negative 1. And c is a negative 6. So there's not a greatest common factor between 12, negative 1, and negative 6. So we need to take a times c, so that's 12 times a negative 6, and we get negative 72. So we're going to multiply to get negative 72, and we're still trying to add to get the negative 1. So we look at negative 72. So I could have 1 times 72. If I do 72 divided by 2, I get 36. If I do 72 divided by 3, I get 24. If I do 72 divided by 4, I get 18. If I try to do 72 divided by 5, I'll get a decimal, so it doesn't work. 72 divided by 6 is 12. 72 divided by 7 doesn't work. 72 divided by 8 is 9. And then it's 9, which I already have written down. Now again, I'm adding to get, or multiplying to get a negative number, so one of my numbers has to be negative. But I want to add to get a negative number as well, so my bigger number has to be negative. So which pair adds to get a negative 1? Well, that's this right here. So I have 8 and negative 9. So I write a on top, it's this 12, over 8, and then 12 over a negative 9. Now I can reduce. I can reduce this by 4. So instead of 12, I would have 3 on top and 2 on the bottom. And this one I can reduce by 3, which would give me 4 on the top and negative 3 on the bottom. So now I'm ready to write. This is really x and x, remember, because this was x squared. So I can write my parentheses now. I have 3x plus 2 and 4x minus 3. I'm just reading again those fractions straight down. And again, I can FOIL that, and if I FOIL it, I'll get back up to where I started. Okay, so let's look at this. I have A is 9, B is 30, and C is negative 24. But if I look at all three of those numbers, I can see that they can all be divided by 3. So that's a greatest common factor. So before I do anything, I need to take that 3 out. So if I take a 3 out of the 9, I have 3t squared. If I take a 3 out of the 30, I have plus 10t. And if I take a 3 out of the negative 24, I have a minus 8. And now my A changes. It's now a 3. B changes. It's now a 10. And C changes. It's now a negative 8. Again, double check. Do I have any other factors? Greatest common factors with 3, 10, and negative 8, and I do not. Okay, so now I'm ready to start with my A times C, but I have a new A and a new C. I do 3 times a negative 8, and I get negative 24. So I'm trying to find the factors of negative 24 that add up to get 10. So I can take negative 24, I can do 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6, 5 doesn't go in, and I already have 6. I want a negative multiplication, but I want a positive addition. That means my bigger number needs to be positive. So I'll put the negative sign on my smaller numbers. And I can see that this pair right here will give me the 10 I need. So I'll have a negative 2 and a positive 12. So again, remember, here's my A. I'm going to put that on top. 3 over negative 2 and 3 over 12. This one reduces to give me 1 over 4. So this is really a T, so I have a T with both of my top things as well. So reading straight down, again, I have 3t minus 2 and 1t, or just t, plus 4. Now remember, we factored out in the very beginning this 3. So when we write our final answer, we have to write that 3 out in front as well. And this is my final answer. So now we're going to do the same thing. There's nothing different here. I just have quit giving you all of the little steps because I want us to think through it. So A is 4, B is 8, and C is negative 60. So we want to see, is there a greatest common factor? And there is. 4 goes into all of those. So I'm going to write the 4 out in front. That changes this. 4 divided by 4 is 1, so I would have A squared. 8 divided by 4 is 2, so I'd have plus 2a. And negative 60 divided by 4 is 15, so I'd have minus 15. Alright, so now we're ready to start with our A times C. So we have 1 times a negative 15, which is negative 15. So I'm trying to multiply to get negative 15, and I'm trying to add to get 2. So I list my factors of negative 15, that's 1 and 15, 2 doesn't work, 3 and 5, 4 doesn't work, and 5 is already there. Now I want to multiply to get a negative number, but I'm trying to add to get a positive number, so I want my bigger number to be positive, so I'll put the negatives on the smaller numbers. And this pair right here gives me my working pair. So I'll take my new A and I put it on top. 1 over negative 3 and 1 over 5. This is A squared, so I really have an A in both places here. I can read straight down. So 1A, or A, minus 3. And 1A, or A, plus 5. And I remember I had this 4 out in front, so I still have to have this 4 out in front down here.